Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, epic history time. It's a great time. My name's Connor if you're new. Hello guys. Epic history, phenomenal channel. I obviously say it all the time. Favorite history channel. Rise of China, continuing the Rise of China series. Uh-oh. The Great Leap Forward. The east is red and the sun rises. In China there emerges Mao Zedong. The east is red. Evolutionary song. Revolutionary song. Jesus.
China, 1949.
Wait.
From Peak.
I forgot that my mic wasn't working. Test. It's working. Okay.
King, China, 1949. From Peking's Tiananmen Square, Communist leader Mao Zedong has proclaimed the establishment of the People's Republic of China. A new age for China, for the Chinese Communist Party, and for Chairman Mao. He has devoted his life to revolution and to his dream of transforming China. Now is his moment. Mao's government calls itself a People's Democratic Dictatorship.
Okay, again, when it comes to history, guys, I often say, like, I don't care about morals. It doesn't mean I don't care about morality in present day, obviously, or the atrocities committed in the past, and I'm no fan of current day China or of communism. I'm not a fan, okay? But Mao's story to power, rise to power, is very impressive. I mean, going from the very brink of destruction by the nationalists, and then doing that long march away from them with only a few of your people left, and then sort of a saving grace in a cruel way of the Japanese attacking, meant that the nationalists had to now join with you. I think Chiang Kai-shek was sort of forced to join with you to fight against the Japanese, and then eventually you would then become the winning side and take over China, and obviously the nationalists fled to Taiwan. So regardless of how evil I think any dictator or historical figure might be, we're talking about history here, and that's goddamn impressive.
But democracy is not on the agenda.
Sure.
Instead, the heart of government is the Central Committee of around 100 senior party members. Above that, the 12-strong Politburo. And within that, the Politburo's Standing Committee, where true power lies. There are 5 members, including Liu Shaoqi, a veteran labor organizer who studied in Moscow. He is now vice chairman of the Communist Party.
Zhou Enlai, is a familiar name and a familiar face. I don't know much about him, but I definitely have heard of him.
Zhou Enlai, a hero of the revolution, once Mao's superior within the party, but who has now publicly and privately committed to Mao's leadership. Charming and polite, he has shown a great talent for diplomacy and will serve as Communist China's first state premier and foreign minister. And Mao himself, chairman of the Chinese Communist Party and paramount leader. Aged 55, Mao now wields unchallenged personal authority, the result of his inspiring leadership in the struggle against the Japanese and nationalists. Though never a natural orator, Mao is a charismatic figure, capable of deep intellectual thought, shrewd political tactics, and stirring writing. Since 1938, he has been married to his 4th wife, the famous actress Jiang Qing. She is a powerful personality in her own right, ferociously loyal to Mao, and scathing of his rivals, real or imagined.
Guys, so the way Chinese names are constructed, the what we would see as the last name is actually their first name, right? And vice versa. So Mao, in a Western sense, is his last name, right? And so does that mean Zedong is his first name?
After years of revolution, invasion, and civil war, China is impoverished and in desperate need of reform and rebuilding. The Communist Party gets to work immediately to impose a vision on the country that is heavily inspired by Soviet thinking. To this end, around 10,000 Soviet advisors arrive in China to assist in reconstruction. The country remains an overwhelmingly agrarian society. In 1949, by rough estimate, every fifth person on Earth is a Chinese peasant.
Jesus.
They have long provided the base for communist success in China, wooed by the promise of land redistribution, which has been enforced in communist-controlled areas since the early 1930s. Now it is to be rolled out on a national scale. Rural landowners, who have dominated the Chinese countryside for centuries, are vilified for abusing their power over peasants.
One of the ruthless things I heard Mao did was that at one point he said to everyone, like, hey, I know that a lot of you have some quarrels and disagreements with how the Communist Party under myself is being run, so I want to say, without any punishments, I want everyone to just enter any complaints they might have about the government openly and fairly, you know? And then when the complaints were put in, he just took the ones that were complaining and then like, I don't know if he executed all of them or just like shunned them into, you know, work camps or something like that. That is brutal. Like, hey guys, so I get it. I'm not perfect. So I want everyone to be open and just, you know, send in with your name on them, please. Anything that you have problems with me about, we need to be open, okay? Okay, anyone who said anything wrong, you are now an enemy. And what? I thought that's crazy. If I'm correct, I think I am.
They are publicly humiliated by the communists, put on trial, and executed in huge numbers. More than 1 million are killed.
Jesus.
Their land is seized and redistributed. Over the next 3 years, about 300 million peasants receive land for the first time.
Yeah, a common problem I see with revolutionary communist, new-coming communist governments is that they see the, you know, the landowners as the exploiters, and in many ways, I'm sure they were. But what they don't see is that those people did have the skill of providing the goods and food that the country needed, and they think they can just be like, okay, now workers, you're in charge. And then they're surprised that the workers aren't as adept as, is adept the right word? At creating the amount of food the country needs, and then that leads to famine. And so...
Early reforms are intended to fundamentally reshape Chinese society. New laws improve the rights of women and protect their role in the workforce. To improve literacy rates of just 20%, the government promotes the use of simplified Chinese characters.
Oh, cool, that's where that comes
Huge
from.
propaganda drives in theaters, public storytelling and posters aim to both educate and indoctrinate in communist revolutionary values. Suspected counter-revolutionaries, such as nationalist sympathizers, corrupt officials and capitalists, are to be reported and eliminated. The campaign's
It's got to be so terrifying, even if you are not of the exploiting. I use exploiting not to say that like they definitely weren't exploiting, but to be like that everyone who is in this upper class is exploiting. Forget it. It's got to be so terrifying. It must lead to a domino effect because, one, you have to be paranoid that even if you are sympathetic to the cause of the new government, communist government, that someone might just tell on you, and without much trial or you being able to say much, their word will just be taken and you'll be killed or sent somewhere, right? And on the other way around, you must want to act more aggressively pointing out people, because then you'll be shown as someone who's obviously not a conspirator against the government if you're so hard on pointing at people. And so that'll do a domino effect where just people are going to want to ruthlessly, for their own self-preservation, just want to be seen as the most adamant supporter and then just point everyone out. It's got to be so terrifying.
Upend China's traditional class structure, humiliating and impoverishing bourgeois and middle-class families. The number of victims is impossible to quantify, but hundreds of thousands suffer loss of status, confiscation of property, or imprisonment. Some are even forced to take their own lives.
Caligula, Nero type stuff there. The atom bomb is a paper tiger which the US reactionaries use to scare people. I find that the term reactionaries is still a term used by a lot of far left people today.
China's new communist leaders seek to build alliances abroad, but World War II has been followed by the Cold War, and the world is now divided between a democratic, capitalist West and the Soviet-led communist bloc. The Western powers offer no support to communist China. In fact, they continue to recognize their wartime ally, Chiang Kai-shek, as China's legitimate ruler. His authoritarian nationalist government, officially known as the Republic of China, still holds Taiwan and small islands in the Taiwan Strait. Inevitably, it is to the Soviet Union that Mao turns. In December 1949, he travels to Moscow for 3 months of talks with Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin.
Who are these guys? So, Engels, Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin?
Their relationship is not an easy one. In imposing his own brand of communism in China, Mao has often overruled his Soviet-backed rivals. Nevertheless, in February 1950, the two leaders sign a treaty of friendship, alliance, and mutual assistance, unlocking economic and military cooperation between China and the Soviet Union. By the 18th century, the Qing dynasty had added several remote western territories to its empire.
Xinjiang,
Mongolia, Xinjiang, and Tibet. But in the tumult following the 1911 revolution, they had escaped Chinese control.
I thought Tibet was only taken over in the 50s or 60s by China. I didn't know that they were previously a part of them.
During the 1911 revolution, they had escaped Chinese control.
Interesting.
Now the communist government acts to reimpose central authority. In 1949, the People's Liberation Army is sent to reoccupy Xinjiang. In 1951, Tibet is occupied and annexed, following a short conflict the Chinese government euphemistically calls the peaceful liberation of Tibet.
Classic.
As part of the settlement, the Dalai Lama is allowed to remain at the head of a local government.
He retreats to India, right?
No attempt is made to regain Outer Mongolia, which is now within the Soviet sphere of influence. Taiwan remains a major source of contention. Both the communists and Chiang's nationalists continue to denounce the other side as bandits and their governments as illegitimate. Elsewhere, China's borders seem settled. But in 1950, the People's Republic of China faces a major conflict on its doorstep: the Korean War. After World War II, Korea had been divided into two separate states, a communist north and democratic south. In June 1950, northern forces invade the south, advancing rapidly and capturing Seoul within a week. Korea becomes a Cold War battleground. Under US leadership, UN troops intervene in support of South Korea.
That was close, huh? Geez, not much area.
By the end of the year, they have pushed the front line back to the Yalu River, close to the North Korean-Chinese border. Fearing a US-led invasion and hoping to shore up a communist ally, Mao sends in Chinese troops to support North Korea. More than 1 million Chinese troops enter the battle, soon rising to 2.5 million. In the face of this onslaught, UN forces retreat south. After months of heavy fighting, the war enters a stalemate. Both sides dig in along the 38th parallel. In 1953, an armistice is agreed, and this becomes the heavily fortified border between North and South Korea, known as the DMZ, Demilitarized Zone. For China and for Mao, the Korean War is presented as a triumph. They have championed the global socialist cause and stood up to the US superpower.
So this is Japanese, I think? American? And what is this here? Is this just like a Southern Korean type hat here?
Stood up to the US super.
I'm always fascinated by old war cartoons.
They have
depictions.
Championed the global socialist cause and stood up to the US superpower. Perhaps even more importantly, communist legitimacy within China is greatly bolstered. But it comes at a huge cost. The Korean War claims an estimated 3 million lives.
Wow.
Chinese military casualties are more than 500,000, possibly many more. They include Mao's own son, Mao An-ing, killed in a UN airstrike while serving with Chinese forces. In its efforts to curb the spread of communism, the US has now imposed a total trade embargo on communist China. The war has also strengthened US support for Chiang Kai-shek's government in Taiwan, with President Truman sending the US 7th Fleet to deter a potential communist attack.
So in essence, the North and South Korean conflict and the mainland China versus Taiwan conflict are just two still unresolved wars that go back 70 years and don't really have an end to them, and they're kind of still stalemate today. I'd be curious to see how many Taiwanese... never mind. Let 100 flowers bloom. Maoist slogan. 1956. One sec, guys. Okay, continue.
In 1953, China's government introduces its first 5-year plan, inspired by similar economic programs in the Soviet Union. One aim is to swiftly and massively increase Chinese industrial output. Huge efforts, backed by Soviet technical expertise, produce remarkable results in transport, industry, and infrastructure. Production of coal, iron, and steel all exceed their ambitious targets. While China becomes a major oil producer for the first time. The second aim of the 5-year plan is to rapidly boost agricultural output. To this end, the Communist Party pushes farmers to collectivize on a massive scale, forming cooperatives that include dozens, sometimes hundreds of households. By 1956, 80% of peasant households belong to a cooperative, meaning they share the land, tools, and harvest. Cooperatives also have an ideological aim: to tighten. Cooperatives also have an ideological aim. Cooperatives also have an ideological aim: to tighten party control over the lives and thoughts of rural communities. At breakneck speed, communist reforms are overturning a rural way of life that's centuries old, and sowing the seeds of disaster. Mao is encouraged by the apparent success of the first 5-year plan. Hoping to encourage further innovation, in 1956 he announces, "Let 100 flowers bloom, let 100 schools of thought contend." It is an invitation for others to come forward with constructive proposals for
I know where this is going.
the government. In response, criticism of the party comes flooding in, from intellectuals, academics, and scientists. Mao and the leadership are dismayed and angered. Rather than welcome proposals...
Oh, so I wasn't sure if it was a trick to find out more anti-Maoist Communist Party people within the country, or if it was well meant at the start until they read what they said.
They move to crush what they now regard as dangerous dissent. A new anti-rightist campaign punishes at least 500,000 men and women who are considered insufficiently loyal to the party. Penalties include public humiliation, hard labor, and execution.
But how did they know who wrote what? If they required people to write their names down on what they wrote as criticisms, then it would seem like it was a intended way of rooting out people. I'm not sure.
Among the leaders of this brutal campaign, a new addition to the Politburo Standing Committee, the 52-year-old Deng Xiaoping. A veteran of the Long March, he will become a crucial figure in the years ahead.
The thoughts of the chairman are always correct. If we encounter any problems, any difficulties, because we have not followed the instructions of the chairman closely enough. Holy crap. Jesus Christ. If anything happens that's wrong, it's because people just aren't following closely enough. It's an insane statement in any government.
1958. The start of a second 5-year plan. This time, even more ambitious. Mao calls it the Great Leap Forward, a huge program to create a truly socialist state and dramatically expand industrial output to catch up with the world's leading economies.
Is this where the steel mills come in? I heard that one of the party's ideas for increasing steel output was that everyone should have their own steel kilns, if that's the right word. You know, their own means of creating steel, like in their own homes. But obviously, they're not going to be that well made. You know.
Huge public information campaign spreads the message throughout the country, urging every Chinese citizen to rise to the challenge and embrace Mao's leadership. Existing rural cooperatives are merged into vast people's communes, in which the party controls every aspect of daily life. The state now owns the land, buys harvests, and distributes rations. Private kitchens are banned as representing selfish individualism and replaced by communal canteens. Very quickly, the Great Leap Forward's ambitions become detached from reality. Many of the technicians and experts who should have overseen the campaign have been purged. Under intense pressure to meet unrealistic targets, local party officials exaggerate harvest figures.
I've seen a documentary about the Great Leap Forward, where there was one case where they actually interviewed someone who was alive at the time, who said that, you know, as a show of how much output they've had of crops, like wheat, I think was the example, and how there was this giant mound of wheat that was like, look how much we've produced, right? And then the man that they were interviewing in the documentary was like, we knew that directly underneath the wheat on the outside was not wheat, and so you create a large mound of something like rock or whatever, and then put a lot of wheat on the outside to make it look like it's a giant mound of pure wheat. But I remember the guy in the documentary saying, like, I saw right through it, like he saw right through it, like this isn't one giant mound of wheat, it's a mound of something covered with wheat on the outside to make it look like the output is larger than it was.
These inflated reports suggest large surpluses of grain, which is then...
The problem with that is, like, okay, if there's such large surpluses, then why are you exporting so much and giving so little to the people that are starving?
Taken from the communes to supply the cities. In reality, this means far too much grain is taken from the communes, often leaving them without enough to feed themselves. Drought, mismanagement, and corruption actually mean agricultural production is in steep decline. Millions of peasants now face starvation. On top of this, farmers face new nonsensical demands, like an order to use homemade foundries to produce iron, often of such poor quality it's unusable. The result is a disastrous famine across China. By some recent estimates, Mao's Great Leap Forward is responsible for at least 45 million excess deaths.
This is the main quarrel I have with the word fascism being seen as much worse than communism. And of course, fascism is awful, but authoritarianism is awful, right? And so fascism has such a more powerful effect on people when they hear it compared to communism, because communism has ideals that seem the opposite of fascism and being great for people. But if you're living in a communist or a fascist society and you end up dying, does it really matter what they called themselves if in the end there's the same result? And this is why I always say, like, I hate communism and fascism equally because I hate authoritarianism, right? There are much more, fascism is much more outright with its horrible ideas and everything and totalitarian suppression. But communism has the same oppression and results sometimes in more deaths. Of course, there are so many people in China. Of course, the deaths are going to be bigger when you have giant agricultural mistakes. But authoritarianism is what is bad, okay? Authoritarianism. If you disagree with me, obviously, guys, just always let me know.
7% of the population.
Jeez.
It ranks as one of the greatest man-made disasters in history. In the most...
Especially if you disagree with me on my characterization of fascism and communism being equally horrible. If you disagree with that, please let me know down below. I'd love to hear it.
Hard-pressed areas, whole commune. In the most hard-pressed areas, whole communes starved to death. Famine had always been a feature.
And when it comes to autocracy, totalitarianism, it's like when it comes to democracy, there's no single person that can usually be blamed for something. But when it's totalitarian, there's only one person to blame, and they know that at the top. And so, even when something completely horrible like this happens, the famine, you have all the control, and you will not allow anyone to point fingers at you.
Of life and death in... Famine had always been a feature of life and death in China. But the winter of 1960 is perhaps the darkest hour in the country's history. Reports of widespread chaos and suffering eventually seep through to the upper echelons of the party. In the summer of 1959, at a conference in Lushan, Minister of Defense Peng Dehuai openly denounces the Great Leap Forward and Mao's leadership.
Well,
Mao is not in listening mood. Peng is placed under house arrest and removed from office. His replacement, General Lin Biao, is one of Mao's most loyal supporters. But as the months go by, the evidence becomes impossible to ignore.
this reminds me of a more recent thing with Xi Jinping. I hope I don't come across as saying, like, where I live is perfect. Of course it's not. There are many issues with America and other countries, okay? This is a video about China right now. This reminds me of a more recent thing with Xi Jinping, where they were in a conference like this, you know, a party conference, and he just says this person needs to get up and leave. And the guy, who I don't recall his name, but obviously a very high up guy, is like, what's going on? And he goes to Xi Jinping to try and say something, but Xi Jinping just ignores him, and the guy is escorted out.
When news of the famine reaches Taiwan, Chiang Kai-shek seeks to humiliate Mao by ordering airdrops of food to the mainland. By 1961, the party has to acknowledge reality. Mao Zedong publicly accepts that mistakes were made. He remains chairman of the Chinese Communist Party.
My bad.
But for the next few years, he steps back from frontline politics. In his place, more pragmatic leaders, notably Liu Shaoqi, Zhou Enlai,
And Deng.
and Deng Xiaoping, take on the day-to-day business of government.
These two are familiar names. Obviously, Deng is famous. I think he becomes the next leader of China after Mao, but I haven't heard as much about Liu.
Some of the policies that had led to the famine are abandoned. Communes are reduced in size, communal canteens are abandoned, and some land returns to private ownership. But the party still controls all aspects of daily life, providing everything from healthcare to housing, education, and employment, while food remains rationed. The work unit, not the family, is the basic unit of social and economic existence. Meanwhile, in 1958, the government adopts a new phonetic alphabet.
I thought he was going to go over to the Soviets.
To encourage literacy in China. It is called pinyin and becomes the new system for the Romanization of Chinese names.
That's really interesting, this part. Well, all of this is interesting.
Becomes Beijing. Canton becomes Guangzhou. Nanking becomes Nanjing, with countless more changes. Pinyin spreads only slowly across China itself, and it is not until the 1980s that the new names are taken up abroad.
That word Cantonese comes. People all over the world are now discussing whether a third world war will break out. If the imperialists insist on unleashing another war, we should not be afraid of it. Mao Zedong, 1957. I know you guys can read, but I like reading it aloud. I know you guys can read.
While enacting the Great Leap Forward at home, Mao takes an increasingly aggressive approach abroad. In August 1958, the Chinese army starts shelling islands in the Taiwan Strait, belonging to the Republic of China.
Wow, they kept control of islands so close to the mainland?
Testing nationalist defenses. The US response is emphatic, sending naval and air reinforcements to the region and deciding to use nuclear weapons if necessary. It is one of the world's first serious nuclear crises.
So I want to be clear here, just to, like, I know the United States isn't this like superhero, good guy, savior coming to save Taiwan, you know? It's out of self-interest, obviously. I'm not that, dim.
The situation eventually reverts to a hostile standoff.
Khrushchev.
But Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, who is pursuing a policy of peaceful coexistence with the West, is furious at Mao's recklessness. Relations between China and the Soviet Union, the world's two great communist states, are in steep decline. In 1956, Khrushchev had denounced the excesses of Stalinism and the cult of personality. Mao is outraged by these views and in turn denounces Khrushchev's views as a betrayal of communism.
I see, maybe inappropriately so, and maybe I should learn more, but I see Deng Xiaoping and Nikita Khrushchev as pretty similar figures in their respective countries.
In his eyes,
kind of like when they get in power, they kind of talk badly a bit about the ways of their previous leader.
The Soviet Union has betrayal of communism. In his eyes, the Soviet Union has gone soft. It is a fatal ideological split. And after 1959, the two leaders will never meet again. That year, China faces a revolt against its rule in Tibet. In response, the Chinese army shells Lhasa. The uprising ends after 3 days of bloody street fighting. The the Dalai Lama and 80,000 Tibetans flee to India. From now on, Tibet is under direct Chinese rule. In 1962, tension on the Himalayan border between China and India explodes into a month of fighting as China grabs disputed territory. Tellingly, the Soviet Union backs India, not China, a sign of how far their relationship has broken down.
India is such a fascinating country in geopolitics today, where they're the most populous country in the world. They're powerful, and they don't seem as solidly on any side than anyone else, or more so than anyone else.
The Soviets have already withdrawn all technical support for Chinese weapons programs. But China is no longer so reliant on foreign expertise. 1958, for example, had seen the founding of the University of Science and Technology of China in Peking. And in 1964, at Lop Nor in Xinjiang province,
Nuclear?
China tests its first atomic bomb. Two years later, it detonates its first thermonuclear device. China has joined the United States, Soviet Union, Britain and France to become the world's fifth nuclear power, adopting a no-first-use nuclear policy. There is no longer any question that China stands on its own feet as a major world power. But Mao and the Chinese Communist Party still see much work to do. Their next battleground will be within Chinese society itself.
Student uprising, Tiananmen stuff.
The Epic History team uses heaps of technology to make our videos, from laptops and drives to
The legend himself.
headphones, microphones, and of course the dreaded cables. And when we're off on our travels, we all know how difficult it can be to keep those things organized.
Thanks to our video sponsor, Bellroy, we may have just found...
I've never seen the narrator of these great videos, and I've never seen him before in a video before. And of course, Epic History videos are fantastic, but the narration gives it that extra oomph that's awesome.
The
What a
perfect
legend.
solution, because the entire Epic History team is now equipped with the sleek and versatile Bellroy Tech Kit.
As you can see here, mine is in a stylish slate color. There are other colors available. It zips and unzips.
I've never wanted to watch like the post video kind of sponsors and everything else as much as I do right now, just because I'm seeing this man for the first time here.
Slate color. There are other colors available. It zips and unzips very neatly and accommodates
Napoleon.
a multitude of cables and chargers and power bank in at the back there. Keeps them all safe, keeps them organized.
But tech kits are not the only thing Bellroy can offer. This Australian brand started 15 years ago by breaking the rules of wallet design, but now offer everything from phone cases to bags, backpacks and suitcases. Basically, if you ever need to carry something, they'll help you to carry it better. With a design philosophy based around functionality and durability, you're guaranteed to find high-quality accessories that stand the test of time. Bellroy also puts sustainability at the heart of its design and manufacturing processes. They're investing in the development of more sustainable materials, and all their main body fabrics and linings are made from 100% recycled materials. So where's my Epic History discount, we hear you ask? It's in the link in the video description. Use it now to start browsing the huge range of products at bellroy.com and get 10% off everything. Thanks again to Bellroy for sponsoring our video. Big thanks to our series Historic.
So obviously, guys, if you're interested in what was just showed to you and you learned about it from watching this with me, make sure to use the promo codes and links. The link to the original video from Epic History, top of the description, and then you'll find the link for the discount right there in their description, okay? Fantastic video. I'm going on 45 minutes for a 32-minute video for a reaction. 45 minutes, that's not that bad, actually. So, love y'all. Hope you're all doing well. If you're not doing well, look at me. Chin up, my friend. You'll be good soon. Emotions are fickle. Never know how you feel tomorrow. And if you're doing great, then that's great. So, fantastic video. I don't really have anything else to add. I've said everything I wanted to say, and I hope I'll see you guys next time. We'll keep on learning together. Bye, guys. Stay safe.